You really thought you'd get that promotion? The champagne glass froze halfway to my lips as I heard my husband's voice through the partially open office door. I wasn't supposed to be here. The networking event downstairs had ended early, and I'd slipped upstairs to grab my jacket from my office. Now, standing motionless in the darkened hallway, I could see 3 silhouettes through the frosted glass: my husband David, my boss Richard, and the unmistakable figure of my best friend Jennifer. I almost feel bad for her, Jennifer's voice, tinged with amusement. 5 years of carefully feeding her the wrong information, and she still trusts me completely. I pressed my back against the wall, my heart hammering so loudly. The board was actually impressed with her proposal, Richard said, his voice carrying that smug tone I'd grown to recognize. If you hadn't swapped those market projections, David, she might have actually gotten it. My husband's laugh cut through me like a knife. What kind of husband would I be if I let my wife outrank me professionally? Besides, the arrangement has worked out perfectly for all of us. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood, fighting the urge to burst through that door. 5 years. They'd been sabotaging me for 5 years, the 3 people I trusted most in the world working together to keep me down. The room spun around me as pieces clicked into place. Mysteriously lost files, changed meeting times, crucial information that somehow never reached me. The shock was replaced by a rush of cold fury. I carefully set the glass on a nearby table, took out my phone, and pressed record. So, same plan for the Mitchell acquisition? Jennifer asked. I feed Lisa the wrong data. She presents it to the board and looks incompetent. And Richard, you step in with the correct figures? Exactly, my boss replied. David already has the manipulated spreadsheets ready. We'll make her look so bad they'll have to demote her. My husband's voice again, casual as if discussing the weather. After this, she'll be lucky to keep her job at all. I'm thinking we push her toward quitting. The prenup protects most of my assets if she's the one who leaves. I'd heard enough. I silently backed away, my mind racing through options, cataloging allies, resources, and threats. I'd built my career on strategic planning and project management. Now I had the most important project of my life to manage. I slipped into the elevator, my reflection in its polished surface showing a face I barely recognized, pale, with eyes burning in cold determination. When David came home that night, I greeted him with a kiss and a smile that never reached my eyes. How was your meeting? I asked, pouring him his favorite whiskey. Productive, he said, loosening his tie. You left the event early. Just tired, I replied, my tone carefully modulated. Big presentation tomorrow. His smile was predatory. You nervous? Not at all, I said, raising my glass in a toast. I have a feeling everything's going to change after tomorrow. He clinked his glass against mine, oblivious to the storm brewing behind my eyes. To changes, he agreed. To changes, I echoed, my mind already 3 steps ahead, plotting the downfall of the 3 people who had betrayed me. The next morning, I arrived at the office 2 hours early. The security guard greeted me with surprise. You're here bright and early, Mrs. Carter. Big day, Frank, I replied, forcing a smile. Need all the preparation time I can get. As soon as I was alone, I connected my laptop to the company's network. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I navigated to folders that weren't supposed to be accessible to me. Thank God for Jake in IT, who'd given me enhanced access during a system crisis last year and never revoked it. I found them within 20 minutes. Dozens of emails between Richard, Jennifer, and external accounts I recognized as David's aliases. The subject lines made me sick. Lisa's sabotage, Phase 2, and next steps to block LC's advancement. I downloaded everything, heart pounding with each file transfer. A noise in the hallway made me freeze. I quickly closed the windows and opened my presentation instead. The door opened, and Jennifer appeared, surprise evident on her face. Lisa, you're here already. I smiled. Just going over my presentation. I want everything to be perfect. Smart, she said, setting her bag down at her desk across from mine. Need any help? Actually, I said, standing and gathering my things, I need to go check something with Jake in IT. See you at the meeting. Wouldn't miss it, she replied with a smile that now looked like a predator's grin. I hurried to the IT department, found Jake at his desk, and closed his office door behind me. I need a massive favor, I said without preamble. Jake looked up, startled. We'd always had a good relationship. He was one of the few people at the company who seemed to genuinely respect my work. What's up, Lisa? I placed a USB drive on his desk. I need you to verify these emails for authenticity. And I need it done before the board meeting at 10. That's in 2 hours, he protested, but picked up the drive. I know. But if what I suspect is true, Richard, Jennifer, and my husband have been actively sabotaging my projects for years. His eyes widened. Serious accusation. That's why I need verification, I said. I can't make a move without being absolutely certain. Jake hesitated, then nodded. Let me see what we've got. While Jake worked, I called my lawyer from a conference room. Sarah had represented me since before I met David, and I trusted her implicitly. I need to know my options, I said after explaining the situation. He mentioned a prenup that protects him if I leave, but not if he's the one who betrayed the marriage. Forward me the agreement, she said, professional as always. And Lisa? Document everything. If what you're saying is true, this goes beyond marital problems. It's corporate sabotage. By 9:30, I had what I needed. Jake had verified the email's authenticity and found more, including communications about hidden cameras in my home office that David had installed to monitor my work. My lawyer confirmed that David's actions violated multiple clauses in our prenup. I'd also discovered something that made my blood run cold. Richard had been backdating stock options for himself and David, a clear securities violation. I walked into the boardroom at 9:55, my alternate presentation loaded onto my laptop. Richard nodded at me, his expression smug. Jennifer squeezed my shoulder as she took her seat, whispering, "You'll do great." David had taken the day off work to attend my presentation. To support his wife, he'd told everyone. He sat near the back, catching my eye and giving me a thumbs up. I smiled back, feeling nothing but ice in my veins. Before I begin, I said once everyone was seated, I'd like to clarify which version of the Mitchell acquisition proposal you're expecting. The correct one, or the sabotaged one that was planted on my drive yesterday. The room went deadly silent. Richard's face contorted. What are you talking about, Lisa? I connected my laptop to the projector. I'm talking about this. The screen filled with an email from Richard to David. Attached is the manipulated data for Lisa's presentation. Make sure she doesn't see the real numbers until after she embarrasses herself in front of the board. Gasps filled the room. I clicked again, showing a calendar invitation that Jennifer had altered to make me miss a crucial client meeting. For 5 years, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me, these 3 people have been working together to undermine me professionally. I pointed to Jennifer, my supposed best friend, feeding me incorrect information. I gestured to Richard, my boss, setting me up to fail. Finally, I turned to David, whose face had gone ashen, and my husband, who decided that his fragile ego couldn't handle his wife's success. The CEO, Angela Thomas, stood up. These are serious accusations, Lisa. They are, I agreed, which is why I've verified everything with IT. I've also discovered evidence of securities fraud involving backdated stock options. I placed a folder in front of her. All the documentation is here, including records of hidden cameras installed in my home to monitor my work communications. The room erupted in chaos. David lunged toward me, but 2 board members restrained him. You bitch, he snarled. You have no idea what you've done. I met his gaze calmly. Actually, I do. I've spent 5 years believing I wasn't good enough, doubting my capabilities because of your sabotage. That ends today. David lunged forward again, his face contorted with rage. Everything I did was to protect us. You have no idea what kind of pressure I've been under. Protect us. I repeated, my voice rising for the first time. By installing cameras in our home? By sabotaging my career? By making me question my own competence for years? Richard was on his feet now, attempting damage control. This is clearly a domestic dispute that Lisa is dragging into the workplace. The board shouldn't. The board should know, interrupted Angela, that I've suspected financial irregularities for months and launched an internal audit last week. She looked at me with new respect. This explains a lot. Jennifer stood up, smoothing her skirt with practiced calm. Lisa, she said with a sympathetic smile that turned my stomach, we've been friends for 12 years now? Do you really think I would hurt you intentionally? These emails are clearly being misinterpreted. I pulled out my phone and pressed play on the recording from last night. Jennifer's voice filled the room. 5 years of carefully feeding her the wrong information, and she still trusts me completely. The color drained from her face. That's out of context. Is it? I asked, advancing to the next recording, Richard discussing how they would make me look so bad they'll have to demote her. I turned to the board members. For years, I've been set up to fail by these 3 people working in concert. Richard has been positioning himself to take credit for my successes while ensuring I take the blame for any failures. Jennifer has been my direct pipeline to misinformation. And my husband, my voice caught slightly before I studied it, has been undermining me at home and at work, all while pretending to be supportive. One of the board members, Harold Winters, frowned at Richard. I've always found it odd how Lisa's initial projections would be off, yet you'd have the correct numbers ready immediately. Almost as if you knew in advance. Because I do my due diligence, Richard snapped, but his confidence was visibly cracking. I clicked to the next slide on my presentation. This is an email from Richard to David 2 months ago, outlining their strategy for the Harrison project. Note the timestamp. This was sent before the data was even collected. David's face went from red with anger to ashen. Lisa, he said, suddenly switching tactics, his voice softening to the tone he used when trying to manipulate me. Baby, this isn't what it looks like. We can talk about this at home. This isn't the place. There is no more home to discuss this in, I replied evenly. And this is exactly the place, since you've made my professional life part of your personal vendetta. Jennifer tried again, tears now streaming down her face. Lisa, please. We've been friends since college. Remember when I helped you get this job in the first place? That's right, I said, nodding. You did help me get this job. And then spent the next 5 years making sure I couldn't advance beyond a certain point. Was that the plan all along, Jen? Keep me grateful but contained. She faltered, unable to maintain eye contact. I turned back to the board. I've also discovered evidence of securities fraud involving backdated stock options. I placed a folder in front of Angela. All the documentation is here, including records of hidden cameras installed in my home to monitor my work communications. The room erupted in chaos. Richard lunged toward me, but 2 board members restrained him. You'll regret this, he shouted. I made this department what it is. I smiled thinly. No, Richard. The team made this department what it is. The same team you were planning to sell to Westridge Corp if today's acquisition proposal failed. Shocked murmurs spread through the room. Angela's head snapped up from the folder. Is this verified? I nodded. Jake and IT found the communications this morning. Richard has been negotiating with Westridge for months, planning to sell our division out from under us if today went poorly, which he was ensuring it would. Jennifer remained seated, her face a mask of calculation. Lisa, she said in the soothing voice I once trusted, you're clearly under a lot of stress. Let's discuss this privately. We're long past that point, I replied. I turned back to the board. I've prepared the correct acquisition proposal, with figures verified by 3 independent sources. I suggest we continue with the actual business at hand. Angela nodded, her expression stern. I agree. Richard, David, Jennifer. You'll wait in my office with security until we finish here. As they were escorted out, David stopped beside me. You won't win this, he hissed. I've recorded every mistake you've ever made. I smiled. Funny thing about hidden cameras, David. Once I found them, I decided to use them too. I have some fascinating footage of you discussing how you've been sabotaging my career with Richard and Jennifer. My lawyer has it all. The color drained from his face as security led him away. Richard followed, his shoulders hunched in defeat. Jennifer lingered last, her hand briefly touching my arm. This isn't over, she whispered, her friendly mask completely gone. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I looked her directly in the eyes. Actually, for the first time in years, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. The security guards escorted all three of them out, and I found myself standing before the board alone. I took a deep breath, clicked to the first slide of my real presentation, and began. Now that we've addressed those issues, I'd like to present the actual Mitchell acquisition proposal with accurate figures and projections. For the next hour, I walked through my plan. The board asked tough questions, but for the first time in years, I wasn't fighting against hidden sabotage. I wasn't second-guessing myself or wondering why numbers didn't match up. My confidence grew with each slide, each answer. These projections show a 37% return on investment within 18 months, I concluded. And the synergies between our operations teams would create cost savings starting in Q1. Harold Winters, who had always seemed skeptical of my work in the past, nodded approvingly. This is the most comprehensive acquisition plan I've seen in years. If these numbers are accurate, they are, Angela interrupted. I had finance verify them independently this morning. She looked at me with newfound respect. Lisa came to me at 7 a.m. with her concerns and evidence. I've had teams working to validate everything while we've been in this meeting. The vote was unanimous. The Mitchell acquisition would proceed under my leadership. When the meeting concluded, Angela asked me to stay while the others filed out. The moment the door closed, my professional composure cracked slightly. I sank into a chair, hands trembling now that the adrenaline was wearing off. How long have you known? She asked when we were alone. I overheard them last night, I admitted. But I've suspected something was wrong for months. Things didn't add up. Projects that should have succeeded failed mysteriously. Information would change between my drafts and final presentations. Why didn't you come to me earlier? I laughed bitterly. With what? Suspicions? Richard has been here 15 years. He plays golf with half the board. And how could I explain that my own husband was working against me? She nodded slowly, understanding. We're going to need a new VP of operations with Richard gone. The position would have been yours today anyway, if not for their interference. I appreciate that, I said, but I'll need to consider it. A lot has changed in the last 24 hours. Of course. She handed me a card. This is my personal number. Call me when you've decided. What happens to them now? I asked, unable to help myself. Angela's expression hardened. Richard will be terminated for cause. The evidence of financial impropriety is being turned over to our legal team and likely the SEC. As for Jennifer, that's up to you. She's on your team. And David, that's not a company matter, she said gently. But if you need time off, support, anything, just ask. I nodded, gathering my things. Thank you. I'll let you know about the VP position by the end of the week. I left the boardroom feeling strangely light, despite the wreckage of my personal life. In the lobby, Jake from IT was waiting. You okay? He asked as we walked out together. I will be, I said. Thanks for your help. Listen, he said, hesitating. While I was verifying those emails, I found something else. Richard has been shopping your division to competitors. If the acquisition had failed today, the plan was to sell your team out from under you. My step faltered. The entire team would have lost their jobs? He nodded. Everyone except Jennifer. How do you know all this? Jake looked uncomfortable. I've been monitoring Richard's communications for months. After he tried to pin that security breach on my team last year, I got suspicious. I've been building a file. I thought about my team, 20 people who trusted me to lead them. People with families, mortgages, dreams. People who had no idea how close they'd come to unemployment. "Jake," I said slowly, "could you do one more thing for me?" "Name it," he replied without hesitation. "I need everything you have on Richard's dealings with Westridge Corporation. And I need to know if anyone else was involved besides the 3 we already know about." He nodded. "I'll get it to you tonight." "What are you going to do?" I looked toward the elevator where David, Richard, and Jennifer had disappeared with security. "I'm going to make sure they can never do this to anyone else." That night, I didn't go home. I couldn't face the house I'd shared with David, couldn't sleep in our bed knowing he'd betrayed me so completely. Instead, I checked into a hotel and spread Jake's documents across the king-sized bed. The evidence was damning. Richard had been negotiating with Westridge for months, planning to deliver our clients, our technology, and most of our team to them, at a personal profit of $2 million. David had been feeding him information about my work schedule, helping coordinate their plans around times I'd be unavailable or distracted. And Jennifer had been the perfect inside operative, altering data just enough to create problems without raising suspicions. Around 3 a.m., my phone rang. "David, where are you?" he demanded when I answered. "We need to talk." "No, we don't," I replied calmly. Everything that needs to be said was said in that boardroom. "Lisa, be reasonable. 12 years of marriage, and you're throwing it away over a misunderstanding?" I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "A misunderstanding? You installed cameras in our home, David. You manipulated data to make me look incompetent. You worked with my boss and my best friend to sabotage my career for 5 years. I did it for us," he insisted. "You were working yourself to death for that company. 60, 70 hours a week. I never saw you. If you'd gotten that promotion 2 years ago, it would have been even worse." The realization hit me like a physical blow. "So you decided to protect me from success? To keep me small and manageable? To keep our marriage alive? To keep you from turning into a corporate drone with no life outside work? That wasn't your decision to make," I said quietly. "You didn't protect me. You controlled me. And now it's over." I hung up, blocked his number, and returned to the documents. By morning, I had a plan. 3 months later, I sat in my new office, reviewing quarterly projections. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, my lawyer. "Divorce finalized. House is yours." His countersuit dismissed. I smiled and turned to the window, looking out at the Austin skyline. The first time I'd seen this view was on a date with David 7 years ago. He'd pointed to the tallest building and said, "One day, we'll both have offices up there." Now I had one. And he had nothing. The division I now led as Senior VP had successfully completed the Mitchell acquisition, bringing in record profits for the quarter. Most of my former team had joined me, grateful to escape the toxic environment Richard had created. We'd moved to new offices, ironically, in that same tallest building David had pointed out years ago. Jennifer hadn't gone quietly. The day after the board meeting, she'd come to my temporary office, tears streaming down her face, begging for forgiveness. "It was Richard's idea," she'd sobbed. "He threatened my job if I didn't help him." And then David got involved, and I was caught in the middle. I'd looked at the woman I'd trusted with everything for 12 years, my maid of honor, my confidant, the godmother to my nephew, and felt nothing but cold contempt. "I have the emails, Jen. The ones where you suggested ways to sabotage the Henderson project. The ones where you laughed about me working weekends to fix problems you'd created." Her tears had dried instantly. "You self-righteous bitch. You think you're so special, don't you? Little Lisa Carter from nowhere, Texas, so proud of her state school degree and her work ethic. You have no idea how the real world works." "I do now," I'd replied, sliding a document across the desk. "This is your termination letter. Security will escort you to your desk to collect your personal items. She'd snatched up the paper, ripped it in half. "You'll regret this. Nobody crosses me and gets away with it." I'd smiled then, feeling strangely calm. "Check your contract, Jennifer." The non-compete clause is ironclad, and I've already alerted every company in our industry about your role in corporate espionage. Her face had gone white. "You can't do that." "I already have." Jennifer had found herself unemployable in Austin after word spread about her role in the corporate sabotage. Last I heard, she was working entry-level at a startup in Dallas, starting over at 34. Richard hadn't even had that option. The evidence I'd gathered had opened a much larger investigation into his financial dealings. The SEC had uncovered years of securities fraud, insider trading, and corporate espionage. He was now facing federal charges that could land him in prison for up to 15 years. Just last week, I'd received a call from his wife, a woman I'd met only at company functions, where she'd always treated me with thinly veiled disdain. She'd been crying, desperate. "Lisa, please," she'd begged. "If you drop the charges, stop cooperating with the investigation, they might offer him a deal. We have children." "So do many of the people whose careers he destroyed," I'd replied. "So do the team members who would have lost their jobs if his plan had succeeded. But 15 years. He'll be an old man when he gets out. He should have thought of that before he committed multiple felonies, Carol." "And David?" The hidden cameras had proved to be his undoing. Not only had they violated my privacy in our home, but the recordings provided clear evidence of his conspiracy to sabotage my career. The prenup he thought would protect him had a moral conduct clause that his actions had shattered. He'd lost everything, including his own job, when his company learned of his behavior. He'd tried everything, begging for forgiveness, threatening legal action, then back to pleading, then anger again. The last time I'd seen him was at the divorce hearing 3 weeks ago. He'd lost weight, his expensive suit hanging loosely on his frame, dark circles under his eyes. "This isn't over, Lisa," he'd said as we left the courtroom. "It is for me," I'd replied, walking away without looking back. A knock on my door pulled me from my thoughts. Jake entered, now my head of IT security. I'd insisted on creating the position for him as a condition of accepting the senior VP role. "The new system is up and running," he reported. "Nobody will be accessing files they shouldn't be seeing anymore." "Perfect," I said. "And the other thing?" He smiled and handed me a flash drive. All the recovered files from the servers. Turns out Richard wasn't very good at permanently deleting things. There's evidence here linking him to sabotage of at least 5 other employees over the years. I took the drive, the final piece in rebuilding what they had tried to destroy. "Thank you, Jake. For everything. Hey, they were coming for my job too, remember?" "Besides," he added with a slight smile, "watching you take them down was the highlight of my career." After Jake left, I opened my desk drawer and looked at the champagne glass I'd kept, the one I was holding when I overheard them that night. I'd kept it as a reminder that sometimes betrayal comes from those closest to you, but also that it doesn't have to define you. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Your 3 o'clock is here, Ms. Carter." "Send them in," I replied, tucking the glass away. The door opened and Angela walked in with the CEO of our largest competitor, Richard's former ally who had abandoned him when the fraud allegations emerged. "Lisa," Angela said, "shall we discuss the merger terms?" I smiled and gestured to the seats across from my desk. "Absolutely. I have some thoughts on how to structure this to protect all of our employees." As I opened my presentation, I caught my reflection in the glass table, confident, poised, unbroken. The path forward was clear now, forged in the fire of betrayal but stronger for having survived it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.